Look back down now at verse 5, because I want to continue with this. And by the way, there are 14 of these, and we're going to continue them tonight. Look at verse 5. Therefore, put to death your members which are on the earth. What Paul is saying is, put every part of yourself which is against God. Remember Amalekites and Agag? That entire nation was in opposition to God. They were in opposition to God way back at the beginning of the Exodus. They continued in opposition to God the whole time of Israel living in the land. They massed themselves against Israel and fought against them. And Saul destroyed most of them, but he left some of them. And so they are against the people of God all the way to the last chronological period, which is the time of Esther, in the captivity time. All the way through that time, the Amalekites are against him. So put to death every part of yourself which is against God and keeps you from fulfilling His will, is what verse 5 says. This is the same expression as in Romans 8:13. Paul said the same thing. I'll read it to you. If you live according to the flesh, you'll die. But Romans 8:13 says, if you live by the Spirit, you will put to death the deeds of the body and live. Now see, we're usually driven by our feelings, not by truth, not by our spirits, by our minds. We're driven by our feelings. And so we don't feel like these things are happening. And so we just give up even asking. But this line of thought is the same as what Jesus said in Matthew 5. He says, if you have a hand that offends you, cut it off. A foot, cut it off. Tear out your eye if it's leading you to sin. Now, was he being a self-mutilationist? No. He's saying that anything that stands in the way of seeing God, knowing God, obeying God, that we say no to. Now, how do we do that? There must be in our life a radical transformation of our will. A shift of the center of our being. Away from our members and our body and our flesh having their way. I've told you many times when I used to travel to conferences with John MacArthur, his habit back then was he would eat his steak and he'd cut that centerpiece that's just perfect, medium rare, just pink and everything, and the tenderest piece. He would leave that sitting on his plate. And I'd say, John, didn't your parents tell you that there are people starving in India? He said, yes. He said, I leave that piece there as a reminder to my body that my body is not running the show. That I can say no to my appetites. Paul is saying that. He says, I want you to fully surrender to Christ and bring any part of your body to the great physician to have Him surgically excise it. That's what it says, put to death your members. What it means is, if I had cancer in this finger, right here, I would have a choice, either let that cancer go throughout my body or what? Remove it. If there's a part of my life that is leading me to sin, I go to the great physician and I say, put to death. I don't want my eyes, I don't want my ears, I don't want my mouth leading me to sin. I don't want, and by the way, what are the members? He lists off for us. Fornication, uncleanness, passion, see the list that he writes, evil desire, and covetousness. And he says, I want you to put those to death. So how do we do this? Think through the same process, and I want you to do it with me this morning in prayer. Because of Christ's death for my sins, I can now go to my great physician, and He will surgically remove any tumor of sin that kills my walk with God. Now, just before we do it, I was at the eye doctor, and he was doing something, and he looked up and he said, there's a little something over there by your eye. He says, I said, yeah, it bothers me a little bit. And so he wrote down, he says, you need to go see the surgeon right away. Go see the surgeon. So I went to see the surgeon. The surgeon looked at it and he said, that's deeper than the skin. And so here I am laying, and they're scraping on the bones. I mean, they cut me all open. They were scraping down there. He said, we have to go to the very root of this and get every bit of it out and send it off and look at it. And I thought, I could have said, I don't care. It's okay. It doesn't bother me. Or I could have them do something about it. Did you know if you want God to operate in your life, you don't just sit and listen to the Bible reading and say, that's true, there's something there. You go to I had to make an appointment with the surgeon. I had to go there, and I think the needle was that long. They stuck right in made me sick, I had to close my eyes. I didn't want to watch this. And because you're awake the whole time. But I had to make the appointment. I had to lay down. I had to say yes. I mean, he asked me about 5 times, "You sure you want me to do this? Are you sure? Will you sign this? Do you know that this and this and this and this?" Everything was going to kill me on that list of things I had to sign. It said you might get gangrene, you might get this, you might have this, it might poke through lose your sight. And Bonnie was sitting there. She says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" After they got all done, and I said, "Yeah, I guess so. I'm here and I already, had my coffee. I'm ready. Let's go." Or I could have sat home and thought about it for 5 years and let it grow. That's what we look at verse 5, and we won't get any further than this morning. "Therefore, put to death your members. Because of Christ's death for my sins, I can now make an appointment with my great physician, and he will surgically remove any tumor of sin that kills my walk with God." Now, do you want the Lord to remove anything that impedes your walk with Him? We're commanded to do this. Jesus is standing by. He has an appointment. He's ready. The great physician is willing to do surgery on our hearts this morning. What do? We say, "Lord Jesus, right now I want you to kill these evil desires in my life." Whether they be sexual immorality. Did you know that's always first or second in every sin list? There are 13 sin lists in the New Testament. Lists of sins. 13 of them. Fornication or sexual immorality is either number 1 or number 2 in every list. Do you know why? Because the reality is that is a struggle that the church in Corinth went through and that the church in America is going through. In fact, I just read an essay from a prominent pastor on the West Coast that said the recent homosexual movie Brokeback Mountain, he said it should have been named Brokeback Nation. He said, and I haven't seen the movie, don't go to homosexual movies, but he said that movie is an analysis of our broke-back nation who lusts instead of loves. Sexual immorality is around us. It's seeping in. If we don't ask the Lord to constantly be dealing with it, it's like skin cancer. You and I are exposed to the harmful UV constant radiation, and we're going to contract skin cancer. And if we don't have the Lord surgically remove from our hearts and our minds and our eyes and our body those things that start growing in us, this lust, then it will destroy our walk with Him. Uncleanness. We're surrounded by filth. We have to have Him scrape it off. Passion or lust. Evil desires, verse 5 continues. And covetousness, which is idolatry, which is probably the most pervasive. It's even more present than sexual immorality, is greed is driving our nation. And so many people's decisions.